Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about how many jobs or how many languages you need to get a job. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how many programming languages should I learn to get a job as a software developer? Well, um, usually just one is enough because the reason why you learn a programming language is not the value. It's knowing a programming language has no value in of itself. It is what you are able to do with that programming language that matters. Let me explain that a little bit. So for a lot of people who, I don't know if there is something, I get it to a point because I had a similar sort of problem when I started out. You sort of think of the programming language as the thing that is valuable, and then if I'm going to get a little bit of philosophical, that is sort of like you thinking that, in a survival situation, having a knife is the thing that gives, the knife is valuable, or a hammer when you're going to build something, that's the thing that is valuable. No, that is just an object that has no value unless you know how to use it, and you can, because the value that you get from it has to do with what you can accomplish with the tool that you have, and a programming language is just a tool. It's the same thing as any tool. Favorite of mine is, when I was a kid, you watched these pirate shows, and they get all this gold and so forth, and then they sort of realize that, all that gold, well, it's not really worth anything unless somebody's going to pay you for it in actual money, because the money is the thing that they actually want. So you have to sell the gold, or like find a buyer for it, and so forth and so forth. Same thing with art, same thing with anything, right? Things only have value if they can be converted into something that you can actually use. And the same thing is true for programming languages. And so the thing that really matters is, can you build the things that are required? And you can build, depending on the language now, if you just pick one language, you can build practically anything that people are going to pay you to do. You can pick more than one language. It really depends on the the companies that in the region that you are. What languages are they using? And so what I urge people to do is to be focused on the problem that they are solving rather than the language that they are dealing with. So as a complete beginner, I argue to you that it's better for you to just pick something that is boringly safe. What I mean by that? Well, when you decide to become a software developer, there's going to be 100 people who are going to tell you that different languages are better than other languages, and that this language is superior to that one, etc., etc. Ignore all these idiots, this one included, myself included, if you watched any of my other videos, because the only thing you, as a fresh, never before professional, like you want to become a professional software developer, the only thing you should care about is to get good at the language that is in highest demand in the area you want to work. The reason why that is good for you is because almost all programming languages, regardless of which one you pick practically, there are a few very specific ones that are very super specific, but most of them are almost identical. They are very similar at the very least. Which means that if you get good at that one language, you get really good at it, all the skills that you acquire from learning that language, you will be able to transfer to as many languages as you want practically. Before you are a titled man or woman, or like you've been like working for 100 years, it's going to be like nothing for you to switch from one language to another, and it's very likely that you will organically learn more than one language. Guys, I've worked in many companies, I've worked in many languages. It's not the one that I started out with, but all the skills that I learned in my first language I still use today. It's, as I like to tell people, like you're if you're a carpenter, you don't have to be so concerned that you only know how to use a hammer or like a saw or something like that, because the more stuff you build, the more tools you will adopt into your into your toolbox. It's the same thing for us software developers, but you have to get good at one thing first so that you can meet the expectations of the industry, because that is the thing that gets you the job, not how many languages. It's like I tell people all the time, if you come to my door, like as an example, I have some candidates who have like, you know, they talk a big game. I work with this tool, that tool, this tool, this tool, and like they just list out like 100 things that they've been doing and try to impress me with this. I had one such guy the other day. He just kept going on and on about, he had like an education in this, and he had this and this and this, and then I simply asked him, could you please explain to me the how HTTP works? Like, what are the different methods that we use, and when are we usually using one over the other? Blank. Could you explain to me what a style tag is in comparison to a link tag? You know, like we are doing web in this case. When do you use a style tag, and when do you use a link tag with a style sheet for, say, CSS? And this guy was applying for a front-end position. Blank again. No idea what I was talking about. So he's pointless, because the work that we are doing involves knowing things about that sort of stuff in this specific scenario. And the same thing goes for you. Nobody cares how many languages you know. Nobody cares how many like educations and degrees and shit like that you have, unless that doesn't correlate into you being able to do the job that we're going to pay you to do. Everything you do, all the preparation, all of that stuff is just that. It's just preparation. And doing the actual work is what matters. And that's why a self-taught developer can get a job. I've actually had situations where I've recommended to my employers and so forth that they hire the self-taught developer over the educated one, because the educated one has very clearly not actually adopted any of the skills necessary. They've just gone through the course. They're useless for our purposes, whereas the self-taught one had actually done the work and actually learned and absorbed the necessary skills. That does not always happen, but sometimes it does. And that's why I tell you to do the same thing. You just do the boring, obvious thing. And if that is whatever language that is, it does not matter, my friend. Because the first thing is to get your foot in the door. And when you can do the job and you can actually produce like software, and they're willing to, like, they feel happy paying you, and you're not like just a complete beginner anymore, I promise you, you're going to sort of settle into the flow of working as a software developer. And before you know it, you're going to find that, well, maybe there are other cool languages that sort of can improve on the way you do work, and then there's another company who does something really cool that uses a different language, and then you go into that instead, and then you learn that. But remember, as I said, how many languages you know is irrelevant to the company, usually at the very least. What they care about is, can you produce results in the thing that they want you to be doing, and that is all that ever matters, ever. So what I want you to take away from this is that never think about in terms of how many languages you need to know or how many tools you need to know. Go to the job postings, check out what the companies are requesting in terms of skills, like what languages are like the most popular ones in your region, and bet on that. It is the safest thing that you can possibly imagine. It is the closest thing that you can possibly get to a guarantee of becoming a software developer. Everything else is down to how much you push yourself, aptitude, like all of these other sorts of things, because you have actual proof here that people want people who can work in this specific stack. There's no guesswork. There's no like you taking like top 10 programming. Like, this is all bullshit, guys. I promise you it's bullshit. The people who are making these top lists, you don't know what their motivation is for making it. It can be based on on anything. It can be lies for all you know. But the job posting, that's a person who's going to pay you if you know how to do that stuff. And if you're going through all of those, you'll start to see a pattern. Follow that pattern and learn one stack really well, so you can meet the expectations of the people who are going to pay you to do that. And then when you learn that well enough so you can sort of do the job, then I promise you're going to find that either you can stay on that one language forever, in some cases, and in some cases you realize that, hey, there's other work around and they use slightly different languages. And I promise you, learning your second language is going to go a lot faster than the first one. Have a great day.